What's good, guys? It's TSG. In today's video, I've got Vetemor here with me talking about his nomination for the Illuminati Council. What's going on, Vetemor?
It's going good, bro. It's going good.
Yo, it's good to have you back, man. This was one of the first things that I did back when I started, so it's good to see you back on here for another election. How you
I
feeling
mean, it's
about?
good.
Yeah, go
I
for it,
was
go
just
for
gonna
it.
say it's good to be here, and like, thanks again for doing this. You did a great job last time, and you're gonna do a great job this time.
Thank you, man. Thank you, man. Yeah, look, I don't want to waste too much time. I've given you the questions. I'm going to use the same format as last time. Give everyone the same questions so they can kind of just share their perspectives on the set things. So the first question, and it's actually one you answered previously, but it seems like it's been a constant discussion in the governance channels, and that is the duration of the epoch. What are your thoughts on that? Have your thoughts changed from the previous time you were on? Just where are you at with that?
So, as someone that has been a council member in this last epoch, I actually proposed that it be increased to 6 months because I do think it would actually be better. The biggest issue was that it just didn't receive a lot of support, and I think a lot of people are just like they don't really want to make any changes right now or any big changes until the game almost comes out because there's a lot of just dubiousness with like, let's just see things and how they work once the
Yeah.
game's out. And like, there's no point changing something that, like, for something to be changed, it needs to not just be better than what it already is, but be like a bunch better.
Yeah.
And maybe it isn't that much better that it like deserves a reason. Although I do think 6 month epochs do like would be better purely because like it gives council members longer in the role.
Yeah.
Anyways, a council member can always be deposed if they are doing a terrible job. And then when it comes to just like the actual election process, I think it's too much to ask people to be super engaged in an election process 4 times a year. Your
Yeah.
average community member just won't have the time. They
Yeah.
might
Yeah. Yeah.
engage once or twice, and then they'll be like, "Oh, this is just too often," And yeah,
Yeah. And now that you've because I think before you were even elected, you did have the same kind of thought process of wanting to extend it. Now that you've completed an epoch as a council member, obviously your thoughts haven't changed. Have you felt stronger about it since then, or have your feelings kind of remained the same? Because obviously,
they've
like
kind
you
of
said,
just
yeah,
yeah, they've kind of just remained the same. Definitely, as a brand new council member, it takes a little bit to kind of like understand the role. It's not always like entirely clear like what can a council member do, what can't they do, and
yeah,
I've sort of had to figure that out as anyone would need to, and then like within that, I probably have the same level of like conviction on that stance. Like having been on the council,
yeah.
yeah.
Nah, fair play, fair play. And actually, has there been? This is not on the question list. I'm just curious. Has there been any challenges from your experience while being on the council that you didn't anticipate? Uh, if so, if you'd be happy to share, or how did you overcome those things, or just what's that experience being like for you?
As far as like this epoch, it's not been a particularly challenging epoch. Every proposal that's gone up, only one has been denied. That was
Flash
the one to
pools.
do with the flash pools,
Yeah,
and the reason that was denied, like that was great because like Daraji came
yeah,
out with some really good data, and like we just made an informed decision. And it just didn't make any sense. But
yeah,
beyond that, like it's gone pretty smoothly as far as like a council. Like there hasn't been any big dramas or like difficult moments. It's been a somewhat smooth epoch.
yeah,
I think next epoch's going to be a lot more interesting,
yeah.
just because there's just a lot more sales happening, a lot more things taking place. Although I believe that's going to be somewhat smooth as well. I don't foresee any big like dramas
Yeah.
actually coming about.
So it'd be cool to be on that on the Illuminati Council when it's smooth, right? It should be pretty good. All right. So moving on to the second thing, man. The second question I wanted to ask you today was obviously we have the land sale coming up, and that's going to be a huge thing for. There's going to be our first real big example of RevDis of generating revenue and giving back to the stakeholders. What where do you stand on how revenue should be distributed? Do you reckon it should be in one lump sum? Do you reckon it should be over a period of time? How long should that period be? And what are your reasons for whatever your thoughts are there?
So I don't think there's any good reason to have it be a lump sum. Purely because having it all, like, let's say they raise $100 million worth of ETH and then they sink it all into the liquidity pool, like that's just gonna dry up. That's just gonna destroy it. Like ILV price is gonna just fly high, and all that's gonna happen is people are just gonna be waiting for that moment, and then they're just gonna sell into it, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. I think at minimum it should be spread out over the course of a month, just because that is a lot of buying that has to take place. At minimum a month, and the way that it is done is entirely through random generated like frequencies and amounts. So like maybe they buy like every like hour to like 2 hours or something like that. So it'll be pretty frequent in purchasing, so that like nobody can just like manipulate that and exploit it for their own benefit. And the timing and stuff would be randomized, as would be the amounts, but just sort of spread out over, let's say, a month. I think at least a month makes sense. A month I would be happy with. There is something to be said about it potentially being spread out over, I don't know, 3 months or 6 months or even a year. I do understand that many people would have an issue with it being spread out over a year. But I think the incentives for it being spread out over a year make a lot of sense, because they incentivize your average staker to remain staked for longer so that they can take in that revenue distribution. The argument against it being a year is then new people coming in are also getting that revenue. When we came earlier, we should be getting it, right? But if you actually look at the math behind like the whole situation, the earlier you get in, you still soak up way more of that. And if loads of new people come in after the fact, you the amount that you get less is almost nothing. You're still getting the full amount as long as you stay staked. And that's because you're also earning yield, and that yield, you know, takes up more space as well. So the longer that you've been staked, you're always going to be receiving a larger share of that revenue. And if you just remain staked, new people coming in aren't really going to make any difference to your share of the revenue. Not on a serious level, but I would be happy with 1 to 3 months. But I think there could be something to be said about extending it further than that to incentivize long-term staking.
Fair play. So again, summarizing that point, so definitely lump sum is out of the question. And you're looking at ideally 1 to 3 months, but you are open to a lengthier period. And you understand that the negative to that is new people coming in, and essentially the sentiment of the original stakers saying, oh, yo, why am I sharing my revenue with newer stakers? That's correct?
I understand that that's their sentiment, but I also argue that I've looked through the math, and that sentiment actually isn't accurate to just like reality of the math. As long as you stay staked, you're pretty much getting the same share you would have gotten anyway. But I do understand also maybe having it 1 to 3 months, just because so that we can fully see the effects of RevDis and have that as a reason for people to remain staked as well. So that is also an argument. So I probably see it ending up being like 1 or 2 months, most likely. And that's totally cool.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, man, cool. So moving on to the third question now is, what are your thoughts on, there's been discussions, and this was actually a community member that submitted this question, or this idea for this question. I forget his name. I apologize. I need to find out. But essentially, it was what is your perspective on the monetization and again, we're going to talk about a lot about land sale, the Illuvium 0, because the land sale is coming up. The fuel fluctuating in price by 25% either way, because the discussion is that's going to affect the standard loop, the fuel to go on for a loop in the overworld, and some people are against it just because they don't want a varying price to play a game. Some people are for it because they want to see the open market do its thing. And even then, they say if it's an open market, it shouldn't be 25% rails. It should be a completely open market. So what are your thoughts on that whole discussion, and where do you stand on that?
So personally, I think that the 25% thing is absolute genius. The first time I heard it, I thought it was great because having those boundaries means that people can rely on a set price. People coming into the space 4 years from now, 10 years from now, they can still travel for that same amount of fuel, and the price of fuel isn't going to be like 1,000x, and they're not going to experience these huge crashes of fuel, which is great. And then the concern, however, is that within like 25% bounds, there's like from one to the other, there's like almost like a 50% difference, right? Well, not quite, like a bit less than that.
Yeah.
But a reasonable drop. And the argument's like, what if we're at the top and like people come in and start playing and then it just drops the next day to the bottom, and then like normal like Web 2 gamers are just going to be like, what's going on? Like we've just been screwed over, right? Yeah. But like that's actually very like that's just not how it's going to play out. What's going to happen is supply and demand will take place, and what's going to end up happening is we find a balance that we pretty much maintain, and there'll be fluctuations, but they're going to be quite smooth, purely because of like the pool itself is going to be super deep, so it's going to take a lot of money to move it, and there's just not going to be those like spiky fluctuations. It's going to be a pretty smooth ride, and it will probably end up just like stabilizing a good bit, and then like potentially on like down markets it might trend down, and then it might have uptrends, which I think is actually just a super interesting mechanic overall. And I don't see people not adapting to it because everything else in the game fluctuates. And it just reminds me of like World of Warcraft and like being able to trade on the markets. Technically, the like value of the underlying like gold or whatever didn't fluctuate, but like it kind of does because it fluctuates like in comparison to different items, right? So I don't see people having a huge issue with it, and I don't think that we're gonna see like huge dips or anything. So I actually think it's solid, and I kind of quite like it.
Yep. And so you're down for the 25% up and down. You're not for the removing the rails and let it be a completely free market. Or is that a possibility maybe later down?
I think that would make no sense, and like it would just open things up to actually having issues that we don't want. The reason those rails have been put in place is because we've seen what happens in like Axie Infinity and different games where the actual currency that's used within the game, like suddenly it's super in demand because there's hella hype, and then the hype dies, and then the currency's devalued, and it's just all a mess, right? Whereas in Illuvium, the currency remains pretty much static throughout, and then the values of alluvials, like they'll fluctuate, and but like the new alluvials will still just have the price that they cost like in fuel, like that. It's going to be a pretty stable economy unless just like everyone decides I don't want to play this game anymore, and I don't even want to like that's the only way that it collapses. Right. Whereas as long as people are enjoying this game, it's just stable. And I think that's what's like totally new. And the thing that makes me very excited about its stability is I've been recently hanging out with a bunch of like the esports dudes like Frobe and Zeptal, and what I'm feeling from them is this excitement that all the esports players out there in the world, they're just gonna flock to this because they don't even have to be like esports players of this genre. Like they're just gonna be interested in this just to check it out. Because there's the potential to earn money. And definitely there will be, especially for like professional esport level people, professional fucking like chess players, poker players, just like any player that plays games that it require like thought and that require like gaming experience will flock to this game, and they'll just flock just to try it out. And then once they try it out, like they're just gonna stay. And then like that's all we need, because it's gonna be huge.
100%. Even as a professional Smash player, like I'm loving this, like the competitiveness. Like it's actually, like you say, it's very easy to get here and get stuck here. So all right, all good, man. So we've had the three main questions that we were meant to be working around, and as normal, I have to leave you with one fun question just to end it off. With the land sale coming up, I had to think about this question. With the land sale coming up, And the tier 5 land, we know that it's going to have an arena on it. Just for the hell of it, if you had the naming rights, what would you name the T5 arena on the land? Yeah, the arena on the T5 land. What would you name it?
I mean, if I personally had it, I don't know. Maybe I just go full egomaniac and just call it Vetemor land or something dumb like that.
Yeah.
But I reckon whoever's buying that land, they shouldn't be me. They should be they should be crypto.com. They should be like Coinbase. That's the kind of people that are looking at buying a tier 5 land. Yeah. Anyone out there thinking, I can't afford a tier 5 land, poor me. Like, it's not for you. It's not for people. It's for organizations. And like, they've paid so much just to put like, I don't know, crypto.com in like the UFC or whatever. Like, this is like a cheap purchase if it's under 10 mil, because they can just advertise like all over it. And so maybe it ends up being called like Coinbase land. I don't know why I'm adding land to the end, because it's an arena. So
everything land. Yo, actually land. Yo, that's funny. But yeah, awesome, man. Yo, thank you so much for coming on and answering those questions. Anyone, I'll link Vetemor's YouTube channel, his Twitter, everything in the descriptions and in the video. So check him out, follow him, ask him questions, ping him in the Discord. He's always super friendly and happy to help. And anyway, thank you guys for watching. If you did like this type of content, and obviously you want to stay up to date with this stuff, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. And yeah, Vetemor, anything you want to kind of leave us with before we bounce?
Yeah, just if anyone has any questions or anything, just like feel free to DM me. My DMs are open on Twitter. They're open on Discord. I always respond. I've never not responded to anyone. Like whether it's within the Illuvium Discord, whether it's in DMs, I'll always respond unless you're trying to scam me. That I might swear at you. But that's all. That's all.
All right, all good, man. Yo, thank you again for coming on, and thank you everyone for watching. Have a great day and peace out.